In today's episode, I'll be sharing with you about The Richest Man in Babylon. This is an old book, and the points that he talks about in this short and interesting story are still valuable today.
Welcome to the Personal Finance and Coffee Podcast. I'm your host, Gabriela. On this podcast, we talk all things money and finances. Learning how to manage our money and make it grow is a skill that can be learned, that we can get better at. In our environment, money is kind of like a taboo topic. So on this podcast, let us have the conversations. Let us dig deep into how does this really work. We're going to have guests and learn from each other. I encourage you to listen and enjoy the podcast. Remember, you are the CEO of your money. No one else can manage the money for you.
Welcome to today's episode, and today we are looking at The Richest Man in Babylon. The English that this book was written in first held me back from reading it, so I listened to this book on audio. There's a free audio book on YouTube, and that's how I listened to this book and picked the values. I listened to it a number of times, and these are my takeaway points, the 5 of them that I'd like to share with you today. My first takeaway point is pay yourself first. When he was explaining this point, he talked about how you make money and then you pay everyone. You receive your money, you pay the landlord, you pay umeme, you pay national water, you pay the school for school fees, you pay Shell or Total for the fuel and movement. You're basically surviving. So he explained that a part of all you earn is yours to keep. Get 10% and set it aside for you. Do not spend it. And the point is that set it aside so that it grows to an amount that you can invest and it starts working for you. This is how wealth begins. If you're earning 200k, get 10%. And this, it can feel deceiving of only 10%. Will 10% get me money to build my house or get me money to buy land? But starting with this 10% will make a difference. Then my second point from this book is men of action are favored by the goddess of luck. That's how he explains it. And then his point that I took is that you can't just sit there and wait for things to happen. You have to actually do something. If all you do is wake up, go to work, come back home, go to work, come back home, you're not learning anything new. You're not interacting with people who are in the business you think you want to start. You are not setting aside any money to invest. For example, if you say that I want to start a side hustle, are you setting aside the money that you're going to use? Because there's no side hustle that starts with zero money. For me, his point was like, you know how sometimes you're like, this is what I'm going to do. And then we dive into research. And we research and research and research and we never start. This point of men of action was a major one. I have researched things for a number of years and not taken action. So this was a huge takeaway point for me. To take action and start moving. Even though where I feel like I want to get to is far, let me just start. My third point from this book was the power of passive income. And he talks about when you start saving that 10%, get that money and put it in places where it will earn you more money. Money that you will earn without necessarily investing your time and your energy. Passive income. That is the strategy to getting wealth. Use the money you have to strategically put it in places that it can earn you money without you spending the time as well. Then my fourth takeaway from this book is only take advice from people who are skilled in that field. Have you ever been there and the person that you are asking for advice has never done what you want to do? And on this part, he gave the example of this guy who had saved his money and then he gave it to the brick maker to go abroad and buy jewels that they will sell. This guy makes bricks. He does not even know what a real jewel is, what a real diamond is. He can't tell the difference between made in China and the real thing. And so, of course, he lost money because he went there and they gave him fake things. I use this example in my life of if there's an area that I want to grow in, if there's something I want to learn, I need to be selective about who I am taking advice from, even when the people are well-wishers. And then my fifth and final takeaway from this book was understand your necessary expenses. Something happens to us when we make more money. It's like everything now feels like it's a necessity. Before, you are okay. You would have your simple basic life. Then you get an increase in income. And suddenly, you feel like it's an absolute necessity to have things that before were not exactly a necessity. And the examples are relative. I might give an example here and you feel like, but Gabi, that's a necessity. That's why I'm not giving an example. But to be selective about what you consider to be a necessity. Because your expenses, let me be clear, regardless of how much money you make, your expenses will always grow to fit your income. And you can always justify those expenses. You can always justify those expenses and feel like these are necessities. So to be honest with yourself and to be clear that yes, fine, my income has increased. Take time to be honest with yourself about what is actually necessary, what is actually needed. Those were my takeaways from this book. Just go on YouTube and search. This book is not read by like a machine. It is actually narrated in a very nice way with voices of people, and different people have different voices. It's an interesting listen to. You just put your earphones in as you walk, as you travel, as you do housework. You might pick different points because honestly, I've given you only 5. So I'm just going to go over them one last time. My first takeaway is pay yourself first, at least 10%. And then my second takeaway is men of action are favored by the goddess of luck. Take action. My third takeaway is the power of passive income. The goal is to have money, make you money without your time. The fourth takeaway for me is that only take advice from people who are skilled in that field. And my fifth and final takeaway is understand the necessary expenses. Don't confuse the necessary expenses with your desires. I hope you found value in this episode and perhaps you've been encouraged to look out for this book. Thank you so much for listening. Have a lovely day. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to this episode. I really do hope that it added value to you. Share it with a friend, share it with a loved one. If you're listening to this on YouTube, leave your comment. What were your thoughts? If you have a different point of view, please share. Let us learn. I'm not there yet and I'm learning as well. You can like, you can subscribe because we're going to have new content coming to you every week. Bye guys.